In 1860, when James Spratt manufactured and sold the first patented meat biscuits for the feeding of dogs, he created quite an uproar. He alleged that the biscuits have been found most valuable as food for dogs and have acquired a great reputation. Spratt's patent, a scientifically blended dog food, was the first attempt of its kind to lift the dog out of the class of scavenger, which he had occupied from caveman times. Indeed, the market was wide open because up until then, dogs scavenged or ate human leftovers and scraps or caught their own dinner. Spratt's products embraced the dubious science of that era and wasn't without pushback. Farmers, whose dogs still hunted their own meals and ate table scraps, laughed at the concept of a commercial dog food product. There was no logical reason, other than profiteering, for such an absurdity in the marketplace. After all, dogs have survived thousands of years without humans buying formulated all-in-one food. But in no time, people recognized the convenience of having a ready-to-eat dog food, and sales took off. Over time, a variety of different ready-to-eat pet food brands began to compete with Spratt's, including Dr. A.C. Daniels' medicated dog bread. There wasn't any research demonstrating nutritional adequacy of these products. It was a guessing game, and a game of numbers. How can entrepreneurs sell the cheapest leftovers at the highest prices? By 1948, veterinarian Dr. Mark Morris had partnered with Hill Rendering Works to make the very first can of Hill's KD Diets, the first veterinary diet. Again, critics argued this was a marketing ploy to sell a new product in the growing field of pet food competition. But Hill's Science Diet went on to produce dozens of successful veterinary diets without any long-term research behind those products. In fact, all of the commercial pet food produced in the first 30 years of the industry were a nutritional guessing game. Unlike human nutritionists that had already established the recommended daily allowances for what nutrients were needed to keep humans from developing deficiencies, veterinarians were still discussing what nutrients were needed and in what quantities to provide adequate nourishment to a variety of different species. In 1974, the National Research Council created nutrient profiles for dogs and cats. And in 1984, the American College of Veterinary Nutrition was conceived. In 1990, two separate nutritional profiles were created, one for adult dogs and one for growth and reproduction. In 1991, minimum requirements for amino acids and other vitamins and minerals were released for felines, with experts noting that while proof of a product's nutritional adequacy in all circumstances can never be achieved, hopefully assurances of nutritional adequacy to the consumer have been improved. But pet food processing techniques must be evaluated to account for processing losses. This statement haunted pet food formulator Steve Brown. He started researching nutrient loss through various food processing techniques and nutrient absorption challenges of ultra-processed pet foods. He wasn't satisfied with his findings, and in fact, he became more concerned. He knew that dogs and cats weren't getting the whole food nutrients they needed to be healthy long-term. In 1998, Steve used the new nutritional guidelines to do something the industry hadn't seen before: formulate the very first nutritionally balanced, unprocessed pet food. And the reaction was exactly the same as when every other new pet food category enters the market. Why would people bother feeding fresh food? Pet stores would never buy freezers to sell perishable pet food. That's insanity, but they did. In fact, in the last 20 years, he's created one of the fastest growing segments of the pet food industry. An updated edition of Nutrient Requirements of Dogs and Cats was published in 2006, but it's clear there's still a lot we don't know, or we wouldn't be having top-selling pet food brands causing mega esophagus without any explanations, and still no definitive answers explaining nutritional dilated cardiomyopathy. We have so much left to learn. In the last 20 years, nothing has become more clear than the fact that we still need a lot more research about these scientifically formulated ultra-processed diets. We also need to dive into fresh food research and begin comparative studies between different types of pet foods. It's also clear we have a lot to learn about how to manufacture pet foods in ways that keeps pets safe. We are also just beginning to learn about the consequences of eating too many ultra-processed foods for ourselves and our pets. A compelling body of evidence suggests ultra-processed foods, which makes up about half of the diet of U.S. adults and nearly 100% of dogs and cats' diets, can cause serious health problems over time. Human doctors and registered dietitians recommend that we minimize our consumption of highly processed foods. In fact, all wellness organizations worldwide are suggesting reducing our intake of ultra-processed foods as a common sense strategy for improving our overall health. And we're finding the same thing to be true in our pets. I believe our entire family would do best eating a variety of fresh, wholesome foods that have been minimally processed. And many other fresh-feeding doctors stand with me when it comes to valuing nutrition as the foundation of health and well-being. This means our goal, as guardians of other lives, is to feed the freshest, least processed foods we can afford to feed. And that, my friends, is what the argument is all about. Veterinary professionals feel strongly about what categories of pet food provide optimal nourishment. There's the ultra-processed camp, and then there's the try and do better than that camp. And in that regard, nutrition appears to be a little bit like religion and politics. Rather than argue, my suggestion for peace in this industry is to align with brands, feeding styles, and veterinarians that share your viewpoints on food as medicine or food as sustenance. And in this way, we can coexist together. After all, there's one thing we can all agree on, that we love our pets like family and we want the very best for them. I'm Dr. Karen Becker, and thanks for listening.